The massive circular chamber floated in the void of space, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Inside, 12 alien species sat in their designated sections, each one representing civilizations that had mastered the stars long before humans even discovered fire. The Galactic Council had stood for over 10,000 years, maintaining peace through careful diplomacy and overwhelming military superiority. Today, that peace was threatened by a species barely 2 centuries old in space travel. The council chamber buzzed with angry voices, translated through hundreds of different communication devices. At the center of the debate was humanity. The human colonies had spread across 40 star systems in just 50 years, ignoring territorial boundaries that had been respected for millennia. They built stations in neutral zones, mined asteroids in disputed regions, and responded to diplomatic warnings with polite refusals. Commander Daehyun stood on the bridge of the destroyer Indomitable, watching his display screens with tired eyes. He was 42 years old, with gray already showing in his black hair. 20 years in the Earth Defense Force had taught him to read between the lines of official reports. The message from Earth Command was clear, even though the words were careful. War was coming. Next to him, Captain Ji-won studied the tactical display. She was younger than Dae-yeon by 10 years, but her mind worked faster than anyone he had ever met. Her fingers moved across the holographic controls, pulling up data on ship positions and supply lines. She noticed everything and forgot nothing. The colony of New Bizen spread across 3 moons orbiting a gas giant. 2 million people called it home. They were miners, farmers, engineers, and scientists who had left Earth looking for a new life. They built homes and raised children under alien skies. Now they were in danger, and Daein had only 12 warships to protect them. In the hangar bay, Hyunwoo ran his hand along the smooth hull of his fighter. He was 25 and had never known Earth except through videos and stories. He was born in space, raised in colonies, and trained to fly before he could legally drink. His fighter was modified beyond military specifications, faster and more maneuverable than any standard model. It was also considerably more dangerous to fly. Deep in the engineering section, Minho cursed as sparks flew from an open panel. He was built like a barrel, short and thick with muscle earned from working with heavy machinery. His team had been working for 3 days straight, pushing the ship's reactors to output levels that would make Earth engineers nervous. The alien ships had better shields and weapons, but human ships could burn hotter and move faster if you were willing to take risks. The Council's final message arrived through official channels. Daehan read it twice to make sure he understood. The Apex fleet was being assembled. 500 warships from 12 different species, each one equipped with technology humanity could only dream of possessing. Their mission was simple: remove human presence from all disputed territories by any means necessary. G1 pulled up their own force assessment. Across all the frontier colonies, humanity could gather maybe 80 ships if they stripped every defense post and patrol route. Even then, those ships were smaller and less advanced than what the aliens would bring. The mathematics of the situation were brutal and clear. Earth Command sent evacuation orders. All non-military personnel were to be loaded onto transport ships and sent back to core human systems. The military would conduct a fighting retreat, delaying the enemy long enough for civilians to escape. It was a sensible plan, one that would save millions of lives. Daehan deleted the evacuation order from his command. Console.G1 looked at him with one eyebrow raised. She had expected this. They had served together for 8 years, and she knew how he thought. Running away made tactical sense, but Daein had grown up learning Earth's military history. Every retreat became a rout. Every defensive line that broke meant more territory lost forever. Someone had to make a stand, or humanity would keep retreating until there was nowhere left to run. SOR, a The communications officer was barely 20 years old and looked even younger. She sat at her station with wide eyes, listening to intercepted alien transmissions. The enemy fleet was gathering at a staging point 3 systems away. They were not hiding their movements or encrypting their communications heavily. They did not think they needed to. This was not a battle in their minds. It was a police action against primitives. Taijin assembled his Marines in the training bay. 200 men and women who specialized in boarding actions and close combat. Against 500 warships, Marines seemed like a pointless asset. But Taijin had learned a long time ago that battles were not won by firepower alone. Sometimes you needed people willing to look the enemy in the eye. Yunji worked in the medical bay, preparing supplies and organizing triage protocols. She had soft features and a gentle voice, but her hands were steady when cutting into flesh. She knew what was coming. She had seen combat before, during the colony raids 5 years ago. She knew what weapons did to human bodies, and she prepared herself to see it again. Daeyoung called his officers together in the conference room. The holographic display showed their pathetic force of 12 ships against an enemy fleet that numbered in the hundreds. No one spoke. They all understood the situation. He looked at each face in turn. These were good people, professionals who had volunteered for frontier duty, knowing the risks. He owed them honesty. "Earth wants us to run," he said quietly. "Command thinks we should evacuate and let the aliens take everything we have built here. Maybe they are right. Maybe running is smart." He paused and let the silence stretch. "But I am not running. I am staying here, and I am going to make those alien bastards pay for every meter of space they take. Anyone who wants to leave can go. I will not stop you. But I need people who are willing to fight." Not one person moved toward the door. Jiwon smiled slightly. "Well, Commander, I guess you are stuck with us. Now let us figure out how to make this work." Youngwoo leaned forward with eager eyes. "We cannot match them ship for ship. But we are faster and meaner. We hit them in ways they do not expect." Minho nodded. "I can make our ships burn twice as hot as they are designed for. We will be faster than anything they have seen. Of course, we might explode, but that is a problem for later." Daeyoung looked at the tactical display again. 500 ships against 12. The numbers said it was impossible, but humans had a long history of doing impossible things. The Apex fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 500 warships arranged in precise geometric patterns, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor plating that could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. The fleet commander, a being from a species that had been spacefaring for 8,000 years, observed the human colony with something approaching boredom. This would be over quickly. The fleet's sensors detected human ships, scattered throughout the asteroid belt that ringed New Bison's gas giant. 12 vessels in total, positioned with no apparent tactical coordination. The aliens recognized this as the panic of an inferior force. Ships hiding among rocks because they knew they could not win an open battle. Daehin sat in his command chair, watching the enemy fleet on his displays. His hands were completely steady. Next to him, Jiwon counted enemy ships and muttered calculations under her breath. She had been doing this for 3 hours, analyzing their formation and predicting their tactics based on every scrap of intelligence humanity had gathered over decades. "They fight like they are on parade," she said finally. "Perfect formations, textbook maneuvers. They have not had a real war in thousands of years." Dan nodded. He had been counting on that. The alien fleet broadcast a message in 20 different languages, all translated by sophisticated computer systems. The meaning was simple: surrender immediately or be destroyed. They gave the humans 10 minutes to respond. Sora looked at Daeyeon with nervous eyes. "Sir, they are waiting for our response." Dahan thought about all the diplomatic language he could use. Formal phrases and careful words that might buy more time. Then he remembered that time was not going to save them. Only violence would. "Send them this message," he said. "Come and take it." The alien commander received the human response and felt something he had not experienced in his long military career. It might have been respect or possibly irritation. These primitives had courage. He would grant them that. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. The Apex fleet advanced in a standard attack formation, weapons charging. Their shields could absorb tremendous punishment. Their targeting systems could track thousands of objects simultaneously. Against 12 small human ships, this would be over in minutes. Haiyan Wu sat in his fighter's cockpit, running through his final checks. Around him, 35 other fighters waited in the darkness of space, their engines cold and their systems running on minimal power. They were hiding in the shadow of a large asteroid, invisible to long-range sensors. Minho's voice came through the comm system, speaking to all the fighter pilots. "Remember, your engines will burn 3 times hotter than normal. You will be fast, but your fuel will not last long. Make every second count." The alien fleet entered the asteroid belt, their formation tightening to navigate the rocky obstacles. Their shields brushed aside smaller rocks with ease. This was the moment Dahan had been waiting for. "All ships," he said calmly. "Execute Plan Ghost." The 12 human destroyers, which had been drifting powerless among the asteroids, suddenly came to life. Their reactors surged to full power in seconds, something no alien ship could do safely. They accelerated hard, their modified engines pushing them to speeds that made their hulls groan with stress. The alien formation reacted immediately, bringing weapons to bear. But the human ships were not where the targeting computers expected them to be. They were faster, moving with sharp turns and sudden acceleration bursts that no sane captain would attempt in an asteroid field. Jiwan coordinated the attack from her station, her fingers dancing across controls. She sent targeting data to all human ships, picking out the aliens who were slowest to react. Target their sensor ships first. Make them blind. The human destroyers opened fire with everything they had. Missiles, railguns, and energy weapons all fired at once. The alien shields absorbed most of the damage, but some shots got through. 3 alien sensor ships exploded in brilliant flashes. That was when Haiyan Wu's fighters attacked. They came from behind the asteroid, their engines burning white-hot. The experimental jump drives that Minho had installed let them make short-range teleports, appearing inside the alien formation in positions that should have been impossible. Haiyan Wu's fighter materialized 200 meters from an alien cruiser's bridge. He fired his full missile load in 3 seconds, then jumped away before return fire could touch him. The cruiser's bridge exploded, and the ship began to drift, its command crew dead. The other fighters followed his example, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The aliens tried to track them, but human pilots flew with a recklessness that their computer systems could not predict. No rational pilot would make a jump with only 50 meters of clearance. No sane person would fly through an explosion to get a better firing angle. But humanity had spent 2 centuries breeding and training people who were not entirely sane. Taijin watched the battle from his position aboard the Indomitable. His Marines were not needed yet, but he studied the alien ships carefully. Their hulls, their airlocks, their probable internal layouts. When the time came for boarding actions, he would be ready. The first engagement lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 47 alien ships were destroyed or crippled. 12 human vessels had been lost, but their crews had ejected in escape pods that were now being recovered. The alien commander stared at his tactical display in something approaching shock. He had lost almost 10% of his fleet in the opening moments. The humans had not run. They had attacked with suicidal aggression and somehow survived. Daehan allowed himself a small smile. All ships, fall back to Rally Point Echo. We hurt them, now we run. The human ships accelerated away from the battlefield, their engines still burning dangerously hot. The aliens pursued, but they were slower and more cautious now. They had learned that humans were dangerous. Yoonji worked frantically in the medical bay, treating wounded crew members from the damaged ships. Burns, shrapnel wounds, broken bones from violent maneuvers. She moved between beds with calm efficiency, her gentle voice reassuring terrified young sailors. Sora intercepted alien communications as they retreated. The enemy was arguing among themselves. The different species had different ideas about how to proceed. Some wanted to withdraw and request reinforcements. Others demanded immediate pursuit and revenge. G1 analyzed the enemy fleet's new formation. They were being more careful now, closing ranks and improving their sensor coverage. They are learning, she said. We will not catch them off guard again. Daehan nodded. Then we teach them a new lesson. We show them what happens when humans have time to think. The running battle had begun. The Apex fleet had come expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had learned that humanity did not die easily. Every human ship was a weapon, every crew member willing to take terrible risks for small advantages. The galaxy's finest warriors had drawn first blood. But they had also bled themselves, and that was something they were not accustomed to experiencing. In the cold mathematics of warfare, the aliens still held overwhelming advantage. But mathematics did not account for human stubbornness, human creativity, or human willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. The Apex fleet regrouped and continued their advance. They had 500 ships. They could afford losses. What they could not afford was underestimating their enemy again. 3 weeks of constant warfare had reduced both fleets to shadows of their former strength. The Apex fleet, once 500 strong, now numbered 318 ships. Daehan's forces had dwindled to 32 vessels, cobbled together from survivors and reinforcements that trickled in from other colonies. The running battle had crossed 5 star systems. The aliens pursued with grim determination while the humans struck and faded like wolves harrying a bear. Every engagement cost both sides ships and lives, but the proportional losses favored humanity. The aliens were learning that technological superiority meant nothing against an enemy willing to turn every disadvantage into a weapon. Bowman sat in the intelligence section, surrounded by displays showing intercepted alien communications. He was thin and pale from spending too much time staring at screens, but his work was invaluable. He had cracked 3 different alien encryption systems and was working on a 4th. "Commander," he called out, excitement in his voice. "You need to see this." Daehan and Ji-won crowded around his station. Bowman played back an intercepted conversation between 2 alien fleet commanders. Even through the translation software, their frustration was clear. "They are arguing about tactics," Bowman explained. "The Vrex want to split the fleet and surround us. The Korthan think that is stupid and want to maintain formation. The Pelthid are demanding they get assigned to the Vanguard because they think the Vrex are cowards." Ji-won leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "They have never actually fought together before, have they?" Bowman shook his head. "Their coordination is all theoretical, based on simulations and exercises. They have never bled together in real combat. Each species has their own tactical doctrine, their own command structure. The only thing holding them together is the Galactic Council's authority." Daehan felt something like hope stir in his chest. "So they are not really one fleet. They are 12 separate fleets pretending to be unified." "Exactly," Bowman said. "And their communication protocols are formal and slow. When we hit them, It takes them precious seconds to coordinate responses because every order has to be translated and verified through official channels. Ji-woon was already pulling up tactical plans. We can exploit that. Force them to make quick decisions. Keep them off balance so they do not have time for formal coordination. The next engagement happened in the outer reaches, near a binary star system that played havoc with sensors. The alien fleet approached cautiously, expecting another ambush. What they got was something worse. Hyun-woo led his squadron in an attack pattern that Ji-won had designed specifically to create chaos. His fighters hit 3 different parts of the alien formation simultaneously, each strike coming from an unexpected angle. The aliens responded, but their response was confused and delayed. Different species tried to implement different defensive tactics at the same time. While the aliens were distracted by the fighters, Taijin put his Marines into action for the first time. His assault boats, small and fast, slipped through the confused alien formation and latched onto a command carrier's hull. Cutting through the hull took 40 seconds. Taijin was the first through the breach, his rifle ready. The interior of the alien ship was designed for beings taller and thinner than humans. The corridors were too high and too narrow. Taijin and his Marines moved in a crouch. Their movements awkward. The alien crew fought back with weapons that fired superheated plasma. 2 Marines died in the first exchange of fire. Taijin threw a grenade around the corner, counting on the aliens' unfamiliarity with such primitive weapons. The explosion caught them by surprise. His Marines cleared the corridor in brutal close combat. Rifle fire echoed through the ship's metal passages. The aliens were not prepared for enemies who could fit in their ship's maintenance crawlways. Taijin's smallest Marines used routes the aliens never considered, appearing in unexpected places. 20 minutes after the breach, Taijin's team reached the command center. The alien officers tried to destroy their own computers to prevent capture, but Taijin shot the self-destruct controls before they could activate them. Minho's team came through minutes later, their portable computers already running decryption programs. "Beautiful," Minho said, looking at the alien systems. "Absolutely beautiful. This technology is centuries ahead of ours. Can you use it?" Taijin asked. Minho grinned. "I can do better than use it. I can steal it." While the battle raged outside, Minho's engineers worked with frantic speed. They downloaded shield harmonics, weapon frequencies, and sensor algorithms. More importantly, they pulled the communication protocols that would let them listen to every conversation in the alien fleet. The alien carrier's crew was still fighting, trying to retake their ship. But human Marines had secured the critical sections, and they defended them with desperate ferocity. Yoonji set up an emergency medical station in a captured cargo bay, treating wounded Marines while weapons fire echoed through nearby corridors. A young Marine named Sejun, barely 19 years old, held a junction point alone for 7 minutes while his squad repositioned. He was hit twice but kept firing until reinforcements arrived. Yoonji worked on him later, her hands moving with practiced efficiency to save his life. The carrier was eventually destroyed by the alien fleet itself when they realized it had been captured. But by then, the human assault boats had already evacuated with their stolen data. Taijin lost 40 Marines in the action. What they gained was worth 100 times the cost. Back on the Indomitable, Minho's team reverse-engineered the stolen shield technology in real time. They could not build alien shields, but they could modify human shields to operate on similar frequencies. It gave their ships a crucial advantage in the next engagement. The running battle continued. Daehan used the intercepted communications to predict alien movements. He knew when they would split their forces, when they would regroup, when their commanders were arguing about tactics. He used that knowledge to set ambush that seemed almost precognitive. Yoonha proved her worth during a raid on an alien supply depot. She was a specialist, a sniper, and demolitions expert who operated alone. While the main fleet conducted a diversionary attack, Yunhe infiltrated the depot on a small asteroid. She moved through the facility like a ghost, her slim frame slipping through ventilation systems and maintenance shafts. The aliens never saw her. She placed charges on their fuel reserves and ammunition stores with careful precision, setting delayed timers. When the charges detonated, the explosion destroyed enough supplies to cripple the alien fleet's logistics for a week. Yunhe escaped in a stolen alien shuttle, transmitting false identification codes that Bowman had provided. The weeks of constant combat took their toll on everyone. Crew members slept in shifts, grabbing a few hours of rest between battles. Coffee and stimulants kept people functioning when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them. Dayan lost weight, his uniforms hanging loose on his frame. Ji-won developed dark circles under her eyes that no amount of sleep could erase. But they kept fighting because stopping meant death. The alien fleet, once so confident, now approached every engagement with caution. They had learned that humans were dangerous in ways that violated every tactical principle they knew. Humans did not retreat when outnumbered. They did not surrender when outgunned. They attacked with a ferocity that bordered on insanity. Sora listened to alien communications and heard fear in their voices. Officers questioned their orders. Crew members requested transfers. The different species blamed each other for failures and losses. The Galactic Council sent messages demanding status reports. The Apex Fleet's commander could only respond that the humans were proving more difficult than anticipated. He did not admit that he was losing. He could not admit that 500 of the galaxy's finest warships were being defeated by a handful of primitives, but the truth was becoming undeniable. Humanity was winning, one bloody engagement at a time. The long night of warfare continued, and with each passing day, the alien fleet grew weaker while human determination grew stronger. The nebula of shattered stars stretched across 3 light years of space, a vast cloud of ionized gas and stellar debris that made sensor readings unreliable at best. The alien fleet, now reduced to 310 ships, cornered the remaining human forces at the nebula's edge. The Apex Fleet commander felt satisfaction for the first time in weeks. The humans had nowhere left to run. Dahan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the tactical display. His fleet had dwindled to 28 ships, many of them damaged and running on emergency repairs. The crew was exhausted, supplies were low, and reinforcements were still days away. By every rational measure, this was where humanity's resistance would end. "They think they have us trapped," Ji-won said quietly. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, running simulations and refining plans. Her hands trembled slightly from too much coffee and too little sleep, but her mind was still sharp. Daehyun smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Then let us not disappoint them." For the past week, while fighting their running retreat, Minho's engineering teams had been working on a project that seemed insane even by human standards. Using fabrication equipment from the ships, they had built thousands of simple drones. The drones were not sophisticated. They had no weapons, no real AI, just basic programming and powerful transmitters. "How many do we have ready?" Daehyun asked. Minho's voice came through the comm system. He sounded tired but excited. 4,218. "We can make more, but we are out of materials." "That will be enough," Ji-won said. She pulled up a simulation showing the nebula filled with drone signatures. The aliens rely heavily on their sensors. In the nebula, with all this interference, they will not be able to tell the difference between a real ship and a drone broadcasting false signatures. The alien fleet began their final assault with confidence. They had the humans outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Their ships were better armed and better protected. This battle would be over quickly, and then the fleet could return to Council space as victors. The first alien ships entered the nebula cautiously. Their sensors immediately picked up hundreds of human signatures scattered throughout the gas cloud. The readings were confused and contradictory, but that was expected in such an environment. The alien commander ordered his fleet to advance in a wide formation, surrounding the humans from all sides. This was a classic maneuver, one that had worked successfully for thousands of years. The humans would be forced to either fight on multiple fronts or surrender. Hien Wu sat in his fighter, waiting in the darkness outside the nebula. Around him, every remaining human fighter was positioned and ready. His engine was cold, his systems running on minimal power. They were practically invisible out here. Remember, Dahyun's voice came through the comm. Wait for my signal. Not 1 second before. The alien fleet pushed deeper into the nebula, their formation spreading out to encircle the apparent human positions. Their weapons were charged and ready. They fired on the first contacts they detected, scoring easy kills on what they thought were human ships. The drones exploded spectacularly when hit, their power cores overloading in bright flashes. To the aliens, it looked like human vessels being destroyed. They pressed forward eagerly, sensing victory. That was when the real human fleet struck from outside the nebula. Dahyun had positioned his 28 ships in the nebula's shadow, hidden from sensors by the dense gas, while the aliens were inside, distracted by thousands of drones. The humans attacked from behind. All ships. Execute hammer strike, Dahyun ordered. The human destroyers came in fast and hard, their modified engines burning at maximum power. They targeted the alien command ships first, the vessels that coordinated the fleet's movements. Missiles and railgun fire lanced out with precise accuracy. 3 alien command ships died in the first 30 seconds. The fleet's coordination immediately became confused. Different sections tried to reorganize, but without central command. Their responses were slow and uncoordinated. Now, Yanwu, Dahyun said calmly. Yanwu's fighters came to life, their engines igniting simultaneously. They dove into the nebula from above, a swarm of angry hornets attacking a giant. The fighters used their jump drives to appear throughout the alien formation, striking at vulnerable points and disappearing before return fire could hit them. Second flew his fighter with the recklessness of youth and the skill of someone who had survived 4 weeks of constant combat. His fighter was damaged, the hull patched with quick repairs that would never pass inspection. One of his engines was misfiring, and his shields were running at 60% efficiency. He saw an alien battleship trying to reorganize nearby ships. The battleship's bridge was exposed, designed to give commanders a view of the battle. Sejun armed his last 2 missiles and accelerated directly toward the bridge. Warning alarms screamed in his cockpit. His targeting computer said he was too close for a safe launch. Sejun ignored the warnings and fired both missiles at point-blank range. They hit the bridge perfectly, the explosions tearing through the command center. Seo-jun tried to pull away, but his damaged engine chose that moment to fail completely. His fighter spun out of control, tumbling through space. He fought with the controls, managing to stabilize just before crashing into an asteroid. On a barren moon at the edge of the nebula, Yunha and her special operations team worked quickly. They had infiltrated the alien fleet's mobile repair station 3 days earlier, hiding in cargo containers and maintenance areas. Now they placed their charges with careful precision. The repair station was crucial to the alien fleet. Without it, damaged ships could not be repaired. Yunha had spent 3 days studying the station's layout, identifying the critical support structures. Charges set, she reported quietly, detonating in 30 seconds. The explosions tore through the repair station's framework. The structure collapsed in on itself, secondary explosions rippling through fuel storage and ammunition reserves. The loss of the station meant the alien fleet would have to retreat to their home systems for repairs, a journey that would take weeks. Inside the nebula, the battle had turned into chaos. The aliens fired at drones, at each other, at shadows on their sensors. Human ships appeared and disappeared, striking and fading. The careful discipline that had held the alien fleet together for weeks finally broke. "They are panicking," Sora reported from her station. She was monitoring alien communications, listening to the confusion and fear. Multiple ships are requesting permission to retreat. Their commanders cannot agree on how to respond. Ji-Wan watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The alien formation was breaking apart, different species pulling back to defensive positions. The unified fleet had become 12 separate groups, each one trying to protect itself. Daehan pressed the advantage ruthlessly. "All ships target the ships trying to retreat. Do not let them regroup." Taijin's Marines boarded a crippled alien cruiser that was trying to limp away. The fighting inside was brief and brutal. The alien crew, already demoralized by weeks of losses, surrendered after token resistance. Taijin secured the ship and its crew, adding another prize to humanity's growing collection of captured technology. Yunji worked in an improvised medical station on a captured asteroid. Wounded crew members from multiple ships crowded the small space. She moved between them with steady hands and calm words, keeping people alive through skill and determination. A young pilot was brought in, his body badly burned from an engine explosion. Yunji worked on him for 2 hours, refusing to give up even when her assistants thought it was hopeless. The pilot survived, joining the growing list of people who owed their lives to her skill. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the alien fleet had lost 84 ships. The humans had lost 9, but more importantly, they had broken the enemy's will to fight. The remaining alien ships retreated from the nebula in disorder, their careful formations abandoned. They had come seeking victory and found only death and confusion. The galaxy's finest warriors had been defeated by primitives, using tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Daehan watched them flee and felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. "All ships pursue. We end this." The final hunt had begun. The remnants of the Apex fleet fled toward the Galactic Council border with the desperation of prey, animals running from predators. 126 ships remained from the original 500, many of them damaged and barely functioning. They had come to exterminate humanity and instead found themselves being hunted across the stars. The alien commanders sent constant messages to the Galactic Council, begging for reinforcements and safe passage. They described the humans as savage barbarians who fought without honor or mercy. They did not understand that they were describing warfare in its purest form, stripped of the civilized pretenses that the galaxy had enjoyed for millennia. Daehan's fleet, now reinforced by Earth Command's main battle group, numbered 63 ships. They were battered and scarred, their hulls bearing the marks of weeks of continuous combat. But their crews were alive with the fierce joy of predators who had tasted blood and wanted more. Ji-Wan stood next to Daehan on the bridge, watching the tactical display track the fleeing alien ships. Earth Command had finally arrived, bringing fresh ships and supplies. They had also brought orders for Daehyun to accept the alien retreat and begin negotiations for a ceasefire. Daehyun read the orders carefully, then deleted them from his console for the second time in this war. "Sir," Ji-Wan said quietly, "Earth Command is ordering us to stand down." "I know," Daehyun replied. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. But Earth Command was not here. They did not watch those alien ships burn our colonies. They did not see the message the Council sent when they assembled this fleet. Total removal of human presence from disputed space. That was the polite way of saying extermination. He turned to look at her directly. They came here to kill us all. Every man, woman, and child in the frontier colonies. They came for genocide, Ji-won. I will not let them walk away from that. Ji-won nodded slowly. She had expected this. She had known Dae-yeon long enough to understand how he thought. Then we finish it. The Galactic Council broadcast emergency messages on all frequencies. They demanded that the human fleet halt their pursuit immediately. They threatened sanctions, economic blockades, and even military retaliation if humanity did not cease their aggression. Sora received the messages and forwarded them to Dae-yeon without comment. He listened to the Council's threats and demands, then recorded his response. This is Commander Dae-yeon of the Earth Defense Force. The Galactic Council sent 500 warships to our space with orders to remove all human presence. You did not want prisoners. You did not want negotiations. You wanted us gone, wiped from existence. We are simply honoring your original intent. He paused, letting his words sink in. You sent your finest warriors to exterminate us. They failed. Now they will face the consequences of their failure. Tell the galaxy what happens when you try to destroy humanity. The human fleet caught up to the alien rearguard at the border of Council space. The aliens had formed a desperate defensive formation. Their remaining ships clustered together for mutual protection. They broadcast surrender offers, promising to leave human space forever and never return. Dae-yeon ignored the surrenders. All ships, attack formation Delta. No survivors. Hyunwoo led the fighter squadrons in one final assault. His fighter was held together by spare parts and desperate repairs. The jump drive was unreliable, misfiring half the time. But he flew it anyway, because that was what humans did. They pushed broken equipment past its limits and somehow made it work. His squadron materialized inside the alien formation, their weapons firing before the aliens could react. Missiles and railgun fire tore through shields that were already weakened from weeks of combat. Alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Seo-jin flew alongside Hyunwoo, his patched-together fighter barely responding to controls. He saw an alien destroyer trying to flee, its engines burning hard toward Council space. Seo-jin's weapons had run dry, but his ship still had mass and velocity. He aimed his fighter at the destroyer's engine section and accelerated. His damaged ship screamed in protest, warning alarms filling the cockpit. Seo-jin ejected at the last possible second, his fighter slamming into the destroyer at near relativistic speed. The impact tore through the destroyer's hull and detonated its reactor. Seo-jin's escape pod tumbled through the debris field, battered but intact. Recovery teams picked him up an hour later. He was unconscious but alive, having survived what should have been a suicide attack. Minho pushed the human fleet's engines beyond every safety limit he had ever learned. The ships vibrated with dangerous harmonics, their reactors running so hot that crew members could feel the heat through the deck plates. But they were faster than anything the aliens had, and speed was victory. Engineering to all ships, Minho broadcast. Your engines are going to explode eventually. Probably soon. But they will hold together long enough to finish this fight. Push them hard. The alien ships tried to fight back, but they were too damaged and too demoralized. Their crews had spent weeks being hunted by an enemy that refused to die. They had watched their technological superiority mean nothing against human determination and creativity. Taijin led boarding teams onto the last alien command ship. The alien admiral sat in his command chair, surrounded by dying crew members and burning equipment. He looked at Taijin with something that might have been curiosity. Why will you not accept our surrender? The alien asked through his translator. You have won. We will leave. Is that not enough? Taijin looked at the alien commander without sympathy. You came to our homes. You came to kill our families. You wanted to erase us from existence. Now you ask for mercy? He shook his head. You do not get to surrender. You do not get to go home and tell stories about the war you lost. You get to die, and your deaths will teach the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. The alien admiral tried to activate his ship's self-destruct, but Taijin shot the controls before he could complete the sequence. The Marines secured the ship, and Minho's teams extracted every piece of useful technology they could find before the ship was destroyed. Yunhe and her special operations team had positioned themselves along the border, setting up ambush points for any alien ships that tried to escape. Her sniper rifle could punch through light armor at 3 kilometers. She used it to disable fleeing ships' engines, leaving them dead in space for the main fleet to destroy. Yunji worked without rest, treating wounded crew members as they were brought to the medical bays. The casualties were mounting, but they were acceptable losses compared to what the aliens suffered. Every human death hurt, but they had volunteered for this fight knowing the risks. A Marine was brought in with severe burns covering half his body. Yunji worked on him with steady hands, her voice calm and reassuring, even as she performed emergency procedures that would have made civilian doctors flinch. The Marine survived because she refused to let him die. The final battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Apex fleet had ceased to exist. 126 alien ships destroyed, their crews killed, and their technology scattered across space as debris. Not one alien ship escaped to Council space. Daehyun stood on the bridge and watched the tactical display clear of enemy signatures. 500 of the galaxy's finest warships had come to exterminate humanity. All 500 were now destroyed, their crews dead. Their mission, a complete failure. Sora, he said quietly, open a channel to the Galactic Council. The council chamber was in chaos when Daehyun's message arrived. 12 species arguing and blaming each other for the catastrophic failure of the Apex fleet. They fell silent when the human commander's face appeared on their displays. Daehyun looked tired, his uniform stained and his face marked with exhaustion. But his eyes were hard and unyielding. This is Commander Daehyun. Your Apex fleet no longer exists. 500 ships sent to exterminate us, 0 survivors. He let that sink in for a moment. We wanted to be neighbors. We wanted to trade and share the galaxy peacefully. You chose war instead. You chose to send your armies to murder our families and destroy our homes. His voice hardened. Now you know what happens when you threaten humanity. We will never be slaves. We will never surrender. And we will never forget what you tried to do to us. The transmission ended. Across council space, billions of beings watched the message in stunned silence. The peaceful civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years had just learned a terrible lesson about warfare. Earth's fleets began expanding outward from the frontier, moving into systems the Council had claimed as their own. No one tried to stop them. The species that had sent ships to the Apex fleet were busy rebuilding and mourning their losses. The species that had not participated were too afraid to intervene. Daehyun stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. Ji-won joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. They stood in comfortable silence, watching human ships move past on patrol routes. Did we do the right thing? Ji-won asked quietly. Daehyun considered the question carefully. We did what was necessary. They came to kill us all. We showed them the cost of that decision. Maybe it was right. Maybe it was wrong. But it was justice. Hyunwoo was in the hangar bay, watching mechanics dismantle his fighter. The ship had finally given out completely. Its frame cracked and its systems burned beyond repair.